sa mga pulis, military. Trabaho kayo. Ako ang managot. I say to you, I will continue to serve my country.
And welcome to this special coverage of the first appearance of former President Duterte at the International Criminal Court. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. A historic day as Duterte becomes the first former head of state from the Philippines to be arrested on orders of the ICC. Some are calling it a pivotal moment.
Actually, daming first. Ang dami niyang first. The first Asian to be arrested by the ICC. Also the first, I think, non-African. And the first head of state of a country that has withdrawn from the ICC. So a lot of precedents there.
Some thought this day would never come, but
Actually,
you know.
oh yeah.
Ba?
For a long time, it was an abstraction to many people when you say ICC. Parang, oh, walang pag-asa yan. Oh, that's never gonna come to pass.
Even when the former Senator Trillanes first broached the idea, it seemed something really
Honestly,
far off.
A lot of people I know, well, including me, parang,
Pinagtawanan siya.
parang that's a long shot.
But here we are.
Yeah, here we
Here
are.
we are.
Here we are. And today, well, tonight for us, but today for the ICC and Den Haag, 7 hours behind sila. It's what they call the preliminary appearance.
Right. And it started already like 12 minutes or so ago because we were told that 9 p.m. Philippine time, the initial appearance proceedings will begin. Let's bring in our guest who's been with us the entire day, but we benefit from his insights as a former Hague resident.
Sir, what do you expect today?
Well, let us introduce him properly.
sorry.
First, Attorney Dino De Leon, alumnus
I'm
at
sorry.
the Hague Academy of International Law and the Georgetown University Law Center. Go ahead, Ed.
Sir, what do you expect today?
Well, today, I just want to say that in international law, especially in dealing crimes against humanity, they always say this is sui generis. That means
Class of
that
its
it's
own.
always a class of its own. Everything's unique. So we can say that we can expect some things, but there are also things that we may not expect, right? Because there's not a lot of experience when it comes to crimes against humanity and international law. Having said that, at least based on the rules, what we can expect is that he's going to be read his rights. The accusations against him will be read as well. He will be asked to acknowledge it, right? Just acknowledge. It's not like an arraignment wherein you enter a plea
Wala pa
of
pleading.
guilty or not guilty. But he can do so too, right? Because
If
nothing
he
stops
wants.
him if
If
he
he
wants,
wants.
right? That's what I'm saying. You know, given the character of this president, right, it's a little bit bombastic. You can really never know for sure what he's gonna do, right? So he can do that as well, and then they will do all the other housekeeping things, like well, of course, the language is also gonna be selected. I was asked a while ago whether it can be in Bisaya. In theory, that can be, and in fact, there were job postings for
Yeah, I remember
translators in the ICC for Bisaya or Cebuano.
They're already anticipating a request may be forthcoming.
Or possibly, or because they've been interviewing
Witnesses.
victims and witnesses who speak in Bisaya. Maybe that's also a possibility, right? And then thereafter, I think they may file certain things in this preliminary appearance already.
What do you mean, sir?
Right? Well, interim measures of relief, for example, provisional release. Nothing prohibits
Request
the
for postponement.
request for
na nga
postponement, as the former presidential spokesperson said. So there are things that they might already file in terms of motions, and we'll see if the judges of the pretrial chamber will act on them.
I remember Harry Roque in the interview earlier on. He was maliban dun sa postponement that he was asking for. He also said he was planning to question the regularity of the arrest
Right.
of the
He can
former
do that.
president.
He can do that, definitely. Again, we anticipate, as practicing lawyers, always during the first hearing, we anticipate that they will throw everything that they can throw, and let's see whatever
stick.
sticks, right? So that's what we're expecting them to do. So he will probably question the manner of arrest or the manner of surrender. At least for the Philippine government, it wasn't arrest. They were just turning over or surrendering them, right? So there's going to be a question there. Maybe, I think in theory, what they're going to do, at least for academic purposes, is if they're going to ask for postponement, maybe because they say that there is still a proceeding in the Philippines with respect to the legality of the arrest, and if the arrest is illegal, therefore they were not able to acquire jurisdiction over his person properly. That might be the theory that I
Will
think
that
they
stick?
can. I don't think so, because with all honesty, I think the arrest was, the turnover was proper, and jurisdiction was acquired, not at the moment that he was hosted here in the Philippines, but the moment that he was turned over in the ICC, meaning to say, at least the ICC acquired jurisdiction when he was turned over, and that was legal because he was turned over by a sovereign, by a government, right?
Attorney, let's go to his legal panel, the former president's legal panel. Former Executive Secretary Mejeldea is not accredited, and so he was just given special
Provisional, I think,
provisional permit. What?
Yeah.
Provisional
Accreditation, maybe,
accreditation
yes.
to appear on
Yeah.
behalf of the former president. So this is just temporary.
I think it's
He will
it's just
turn
gonna be
over
temporary.
to a more permanent legal.
Somebody who's a little bit more experienced, right? Because even if former executive secretary Mejeldea may be a good lawyer here in the Philippines, I think all lawyers must know their strengths and weaknesses. And of course, you might want to seek guidance from more experienced individuals in the ICC. And I don't think Executive Secretary Mejeldea has experience, or even I'm not sure if he has knowledge in terms of how the rules work, because his practice is different.
And then today we saw the signature of the president in the case of Mejeldea appointing him as his counsel. But we do expect the same for former spokesperson Roque and others.
What I
Kaufman,
saw,
I understand.
Yeah, what I saw from the video is he's asserting that he's his counsel. But what I
Pero
heard a
wala
while
pa
ago,
eh.
yeah,
Oo.
he hasn't even seen the president yet,
Yeah.
right? So, but of course, the president is free to choose his counsel, especially, yeah.
But these permits or whatever accreditation is necessary.
Yeah, there has to be a process because the ICC would want to make sure that those people who are learned, who know how it works, would be the ones to practice, because you don't want to also declare a mistrial, right? By virtue of the fact that they were not able to defend the client properly, precisely because the ones who are defending them don't know what they're doing. In other words, no one can just become a lawyer in the Philippines too, right? Because there's a different set of rules, no one can just really enter there and pretend that they know what they're doing. So there's some sort of accreditation.
There are not many Filipinos who are accredited.
Not a lot of Filipinos. Joel Butuyan, I think, is one.
Yeah,
Harry
Joel
Roque, Christina Contis, I think, assistant to counsel. But not a lot of... because there is a requirement as well. There's a minimum of 10 years, I think, to practice.
Meron 5, meron 10 years.
Yeah.
Depending
Assistant
on what
to
level.
counsel, I think,
Is 5.
yung 5, and then 10 yung real
So
counsel.
manipis ang listahan.
Manipis, tsaka nag-withdraw na tayo, di ba, afterwards. And then, I'm not sure if it was also super financially rewarding, di ba? Kasi di naman madalas may crimes against humanity, right? So if that's going to be your practice, you're going to devote so much time and effort. And who are you going to be your clients? And not a lot of people would also, especially international law lawyers,
But you
would
chose
want to
this
defend.
practice.
I chose to study it. I'm not yet practicing there. I chose to study it, so I'm more of an academic there, with that respect, as opposed to practicing in The Hague. Yeah.
Sir, going back to the pending case here, the case, well, actually consolidated cases here for habeas corpus. What happens if, for example, the Supreme Court here decides? Either way, if it decides either way, is the Hague bound, or the ICC bound to follow whatever order the Supreme Court? Assuming the Supreme Court does give an order.
Yeah, I'm a little bit amused by the kind of filings that they're doing domestically, but I think
Why? What's amusing?
I think it's a little bit theatrical because they know that in fact the Hague.
Parang fait accompli na.
Yeah,
Tapos na.
yeah, theatrical because in a sense that they just want to show that we're still fighting here, or they're making an issue out of the injustice maybe. But to be honest, the ICC, the Dutch government, or the Interpol are not under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court or domestic courts. In other words, they're outside the coercive jurisdiction. So I'm not sure what they're hoping for as far as their ultimate relief is concerned. But former Presidential Salvador Panelo said, well, bahala na sila kung nag-order. Because he also doesn't know the answer. What is going to be your answer? Sabi niya, problema na ng Philippine government yan pagka grinant yung petition. Because that is a more verbose way of saying, I also don't know, right?
So the pretrial chamber, once it goes to the pretrial confirmation hearings on the charges, in the end, diba, it will try to determine if there is parang in our parang probable cause in our case in the Philippines, something like that. Just so people are familiar.
Yeah.
Parang sa fiscal ba?
Yeah. So para sa fiscal, pero magkaiba ng quantum of evidence required. Here, in a pretrial chamber, substantial evidence. Right? Yung probable cause is a little bit lower. So substantial evidence to believe. Yung probable cause is more analogous to the proceedings that happened prior to the issuance of the warrant of arrest. Yun.
Okay.
Teka, mag-time check tayo, Ed.
Ay,
Anong oras na? Kasi para malaman lang
24.
ng mga nanonood sa atin, 9:30 yung
the streaming will
begin.
broadcast
Oo.
on the
So,
ICC website. And
it
here.
started. It will start 30 minutes earlier, but for security reasons, they will broadcast the proceedings
Bakit
by
ganun, sir?
9. Oo
Why
nga.
is that? Is there a
Security
reason for the
reasons
delay?
Well, security reasons, maybe because they don't want the public to know what exactly is happening, because you don't know what's being hatched, remember, and
Like you said.
they're dealing with the most atrocious, vicious criminal in the world, crimes against humanity. So these are terrorists, right? Killers, murderers.
So you mean they might
genocide.
do something in the courtroom
Yeah,
that is
they
not
don't
supposed
know.
to be for broadcast?
They wouldn't want the information to be telecasted live.
Yeah.
Some delay maybe is a security measure.
Or for example, if what if the accused starts spouting all sorts of language and all that? Is it something like that?
Yeah, or it's a
Pero
go
for
signal
yeah.
on when to enter. You
For
don't
example,
know.
sir, among broadcast stations and broadcast networks, there's also a rule. You don't broadcast critical situations live. There's always
Right.
supposed to be a delay.
Yeah.
Just so that you do not put people in danger in a crisis
You know, if something
situation.
happens there, at least they can deal with it before
Yeah.
it's publicly out.
Exactly. It's a security measure, most definitely. Yeah.
You've been there though, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was there when I studied there, of course, and luckily I was also there during my study when they read the decision saying that the ICC has jurisdiction over the Philippine situation. So I was a little bit nervous during that time, and thankfully they said that there was jurisdiction.
How
it the
long
same-
did those proceedings take?
Oh, it was long. It was long because they read the dissenting opinions first. And then they read the majority rule. And when they were reading the dissenting opinion first, because it was my first time there, I didn't know that what they're reading was the dissenting opinion.
Of the Philippine government?
No, the dissenting opinion of one of the judges,
Of
one
one-
of
I
the
see, I see.
judges.
The vote was
3-2.
3-2.
3-2 split decision, right? So it was pretty close. It was pretty close, actually. But at least that's done. And the Philippine government fully participated there.
That's a different set of judges compared to this one.
Yes, because the chair there, it's a 5-man panel.
Okay.
Well, it's 4 minutes before we see the start of the proceedings, and supporters are continuing to flock to the Duterte family's home in Davao City. We'll get the latest from News 5 Mindanao correspondent Bril Montalvo. Bril, kamusta ang sitwasyon dyan? Marami ba ang nag-aantabay na makapanood ng nangyayari sa The Hague?
Sir, alam mo, bantay sarado pa rin ng mga taga-suporta ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte ang kanyang bahay dito sa Doña Luisa subdivision dito nga sa Davao City. Mas kaunti na yon ang pumunta dito sa kanyang bahay compare sa hapon na napakarami at halos magsiksika na dito sa labas ng bahay ng dating Pangulo. At sa ngayon na, Seth, medyo wala pang movement dito sa bahay ng dating Pangulo na lumalabas nga na i-raid daw umano ito ang bahay ng dating Pangulo. May mga lumalabas kasi na impormasyon na yun nga yung gagawin na dito sa bahay ng ni former President Rodrigo Duterte. Kaya kahapon ng gabi ay napasugod bigla si Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte dito. Kasi yun din ang kanilang nasagap ng kanilang kampo na balita na i-raid umano ang bahay ng kanyang ama. Pero hanggang sa ngayon, wala namang nangyayaring raid dito nga sa bahay ng dating Pangulo. At mariin niya nga pinabulaanan ng Davao City Police Office ang nasabing impormasyon at tinawag mismo ni Davao City Police Office Chief Colonel Hansel Marantan na fake news. Ito nga pag-raid umano sa bahay ng dating Pangulo. At sinabi niya na wala umano siyang natatanggap na impormasyon na may mangyayaring raid dyan sa bahay ni Digong. At if ever kung may mag-raid man dyan, ay siya mismo ang mangunguna na huhulihin itong mga mang-raid dyan sa bahay ng dating Pangulo. Seth.
Tama ba, Bril? Kasama mo ngayon si Davao City Acting Police Chief Colonel Hansel Marantan?
Nandito kami ngayon sa Davao City Police Office, pero sabi niya ay hindi na muna siya magpapa-interview sa atin. Pero yun yung sabi niya na nung nakausap ko na fake news ang nasabing pag-raid umano. Yun nga, binagyang diin niya na huhulihin niya kung sino man ang mang-raid dyan sa bahay ni former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Bril, just to be clear, ano yung kumalat na rumor? Anong klaseng raid yan at ano raw dapat ang hinahanap o hahanapin dun sa raid na yan?
Yun nga ang kumakalat noon simula pa sa hapon ng gabi na may mag-raid daw na personahe ng PNP. Pero hindi pa malinaw kung anong gagawing raid, kung may search warrant ba ang magre-raid dito. Kasi nga, wala talagang natatanggap ang Davao City Police Office at maging ang Police Regional Office 11 na mag-raid, na may gaganaping pag-raid doon nga sa bahay ng dating Pangulo. At yun din ang nakarating sa kampo ng mga Duterte. So, as of this moment, wala pa talagang nangyayaring raid doon sa bahay ng dating Pangulo.
Bril, sino ang source nung mga rumor na yan, na mga magre-raid daw? Saan ang galing?
As to the source, ay hindi natin alam kung sino talaga ang source, basta kumalat lang ito bigla. At may mga media na nauna dito doon na nagbabantay kahapon doon na sa bahay ng dating Pangulo. At nang ma-report ko sa media, ay isa-isa ding dumadating doon sa bahay ng dating Pangulo ang mga taga-suporta niya. Pero yun nga, kung sino man ang source, ay wala pa talagang check kung
Hindi
sino ang
malaman.
magpakalat
Oo nga
nito.
Kaya nga, Bril, mahirap naman yung kasi nag-react si Mayor, di ba? Sa rumor. So, kumalat lalo. I mean, it gives credence to the rumor. Hindi ba dapat sana wag ka na muna mag-react? Tama ba? Kasi kung haka-haka lang, chismis lang, parang nabibigyan tuloy ng medyo halaga ang mga ganon. Ano sa tingin mo?
Linapulo si Bill.
Kahapon nga ng gabi nang biglang dumating ito nga si Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte doon sa bahay ng kanyang ama dito nga sa Doña Luisa sa Division para tiyakin at kumustahin kung anong kalagayan nga sa bahay ng kanyang ama. Kasi nga yun din ang natanggap nila sa kanilang kampo, pero hindi sinabi ni Mayor Baste nang tinanong siya kung sino ang kanilang source. Basta yun lang daw ang dumating sa kanilang kampo na may magre-raid umano sa bahay ng kanyang ama.
Okay.
Bril, pahabol lang ako. Can you give us an idea dun sa temperatura dyan ngayon sa Davao City? I'm not talking, of course, about the weather. I'm talking about the mood of people dyan sa, especially tonight, na they'll probably see their former mayor for the first time in 3 days since he was taken out of the Philippines. So ano yung mga tao dyan na galit, nag-iiyakan o kampante lang? What's it like?
Alam mo, Bo, nang papunta tayo dito sa Davao City Police Office, galing doon nga sa bahay ni former President Duterte, makikita natin sa daanan napaka-traffic kasi nga nagpasagawa ngayon ng unity ride. Ito nga ang mga drivers, mga tricycle, mga four wheels, mga single motor, ay ang daming nagkakalat ngayon dito sa National Highway ng downtown ng Davao City para sa isang unity ride. Kaya napaka-traffic ito sa lungsod. At doon naman sa Davao City Hall ay may isinagawang isang konsyerto. Ito naman is in celebration sa araw ng Davao. Ngayon nga weekend. Pero yun nga, medyo malungkot ang mood ngayon dito ng Davao City, especially this weekend ay ang mga highlights ng mga activities sa araw ng Davao. Medyo natanong natin ang mga Davaoenyo, hindi sila excited. Nababasa natin sa mga netizens na mga taga-Davao na parang hindi nila feel at malungkot sila ngayong taon sa pag-celebrate sa araw ng Davao. And ngayon nga, ngayong Sunday is may Parada Davaoenyo at itong mga sasali umano dito sa Parada Davaoenyo ay magsusuot sila ng black t-shirt bilang pagpundina sa papaaresto at pagdala sa the Netherlands nito nga tinuturing na ama ng lungsod ng Davao na si Tatay Digong. Bo?
Okay. Maraming salamat. Live from Davao City, Bril Montalvo. Bok, I just checked the ICC website. Wala pa eh.
Wala pa.
Ito, first appearance of Digong Duterte scheduled at 1400. That's 2 o'clock p.m. in Hague and dapat 9 o'clock dito. Pero wala pa.
But
It's
what
not yet showing.
we are seeing, Ed, on the screen is the situation right outside.
Outside, yeah. Halo atay ng supporters and I think some critics, but I'm not really sure what group this is. So, yun.
Tanungin natin si
nag-aabang sila.
attorney, ano ba, you were there and I remember you saying that you really feel the majesty of the law when you are watching the proceedings. Paano? Bakit?
Very strict sila dyan. No? Ang layo ng kondisyon ng itsura ng lahat compared to our local court buildings. Diba? Unfortunately, like ko nga sinasabi, it is unfortunate na yung physical setup ng courts natin.
Have a lot to do, no?
Oo, tsaka makikita mo, di ba, yung walang aircon, yung tumutulo sa labas, yung mga litigants nasa labas ng corridor habang tutusta sila ng mga aircon, tumutulo yung tubig
Bibenta
doon.
ng banana cue.
May nakasabit na map, di ba? Ang lagi ko sinasabi sa associates ko, we're there. Kasi pang 42 ka, pang 36 ka, tapos mag-aantay ka ng 8:30 a.m., alas 2 na hindi pa tapos. Di ba? It's expensive. Postpone lang. Tapos babayaran yung kawawa yung litigan kasi babayaran din yung oras mo doon. Tapos mapopostpone lang. Sabi ko lagi, sinasabi ko, hindi kaya, this is just a question, hindi kaya yung physical manifestation ng court natin is also an indication of how the situation of the justice system.
Definitely.
Oo, di ba? Kasi, di ba?
Minsan tambak-tambak yung mga kaso.
Correct, hindi maganda yung archiving. So lahat yan, physical manifestation na yan can show the real status of the justice system, di ba? Kasi how well you manage
Yung record keeping, minsan nasa labas na.
nagulo. Talaga, nasa labas lang talaga. Oo, wala silang enough rooms.
Nagwawalis doon, pwedeng kumuha ng records mo.
Tapos, minsan, nasubukan ko na yung nandun sa terrace, yung court, yung mga ganyan, no? Diyan, maayos yung korte, state-of-the-art yung equipment, no? They're very strict, they're very serious, no? About the things that they do, hindi yung bara-bara, hindi rin clock yung docket, no? So, unfortunately, yun nga, makukumpara mo na parang meron palang better way of handling the justice system. And I always say that if we want our justice system to be better, we have to invest more on it. Unfortunately, ang budget sa judiciary is less than 1%, 0.9% of the national budget, but supposedly it's a co-equal branch. So, dapat, I think, honestly, if we really want to have a better justice system, hindi dapat sila yung umaasa sa local mayors para meron silang courtroom.
Yeah,
Di
that's
ba,
true.
separation di ba? Yeah.
Pero, attorney, why is it that ang daming nag-aabogado sa Pilipinas?
Ay, hindi.
Parang nakabang yung mga tao dun sa bar results.
Actually, akala nga natin marami. Pero I did the maths, no?
Oh.
My roll number is 64,150, ganyan. Ibig sabihin, I'm the 64,150th. Ngayon yata wala pang 100,000. Simula yan nung nagsimula yung abogasya sa Pilipinas.
Okay.
So, sabihin mo ng 20,000 doon namatay na. Sabihin mo 20,000 doon nasa gobyerno. 10,000 doon yung nagpa-practice. There's around 50,000 lawyers serving 105 million Filipinos. Can you imagine?
So we don't have enough?
I don't think so.
is
Based on
that
the
so?
numbers and the mathematics, I don't think so.
Let's go back to what we're seeing right now at The Hague. And I recall Gretchen telling us earlier that the supporters of the former president are expected to increase in number. Mga bus-bus daw ang mga darating. And we know naman for a fact that hindi ba malakas ang
Sa overseas workers.
Oo, malakas sila sa overseas workers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're also even here in Manila, they're supposed to hold the I remember that they were scheduling something.
Are you referring to OFW families?
No, here a candle lighting event, and also tomorrow there's going to be a caravan tomorrow of supporters of the former president congregating in a monumento in Quezon City and in Manila. So may ganun
Pero itong mga kababayan natin, mga mga may mga trabaho.
May trabaho
I
yan.
guess they took day off muna from work.
And if you listen to their to what they're saying, a lot of them are saying they support the former president because as far as they can tell, their families felt safer. At least in particular, their own families felt safer while he was the president. And so it's a very personal thing for some of them, or for a good number of them.
But I wonder though, if their minds will change once the evidence is presented, by the prosecutors about the cost of that safety that they're hailing.
But but also, I think that's something we should also ask you. What do you think? Because of course, people. There's several ways of looking at it. There's whether something is in principle right or wrong, or whether your for example your loved ones directly have a benefit out of what is happening, which is I suppose one reason why there's a lot of people who support the former president even until now, because sabi nga nila, at least on a very personal level, they felt that they had a safer community at hindi sila tinamaan ng drug war.
Well, ang tamang approach dito is meron talaga loyalist yung former president. Meron din mga galit kasi tinamaan sila. Ang tawag dito, ang tamang approach is there has to be sobriety in taking a look at these things, di ba? As a one nation, as a Filipino people, of course we have personalities that we support. Pero ultimately, our loyalty should not be on the personality, but on the rule of law, the Constitution, and our country, and the principles.
The values.
So yun yung pinaka, I think, important.
For example, I think you can look back at yung panahon ni Ferdinand Marcos Sr. You have the older generation, some of them saying na tahimik na nung panahon na yun.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what we're seeing on our screens right now is the ICC website. May you...
Nawala pa rin.
Wala pa rin. Okay, but naka-standby tayo. Sabi lang natin, naka-standby tayo. Ang sabi nila, 9:30 our time, which is...
2:30
their time.
in Den Haag.
Okay.
Den Haag. Okay.
That we will be seeing the proceedings begin.
Sir, why is it called the Hague?
Actually, hindi ako sure kung bakit The Hague, bakit may no? Hindi ako sure, pero yun talaga yung tinatawag. And just to be clear, yung The Hague is called the capital of international law. Why? Because it's not just the ICC that's there. Remember, when we won the case in the West Philippine Sea, the Permanent Court of Arbitration is also there in the Peace Palace. The Peace Palace also hosts the International Court of Justice. So, nandiyan din yung International Criminal Tribunal of the case of Yugoslavia, the ICTY. Andiyan rin yung ICTR, the International Criminal Tribunal, specifically set up for Rwanda. So, andiyan rin yung The Hague Conference. So ang daming mga international law organizations there, pinili nila na capital yan. Kaya ang sarap din dyan around the Hague because everyone's like on the same page that international law matters.
Okay, balik muna tayo dito sa ating bansa. Drug war victims and their defenders are gathering in Quezon City, and reporting to us live is Faith Del Mundo of News 5. Faith, kamusta dyan at ano ba ang tangka nitong mga nagtitipon-tipon dyan ngayon?
Yes, boxes, no? Ngayon nga ay nagsama-sama yung mga human rights defenders at yung mga kaanak ng extrajudicial killings, yung war on drugs, nung kasagsagan nga ng panahon ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Ngayon nga ay nakaantabay dito sa National Council of Churches in the Philippines, dito sa kanilang main office, kung saan nga ay inantabayanan yung first initial trial ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte or first appearance ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa The Hague, sa the Netherlands. At ito nga ay activity ng The Rise Up. Kung makikita nyo nga dito, ay nakaantabay na, pati yung mga kasama natin sa media, yung mga kaanak ng biktima, nandito na rin, at ilan nga sa kanila ay nakausap natin. Sila ay excited, at iba naman ay kinakabahan. At kung makikita nyo, nandun yung sa malaking screen, nandyan maya-maya nga lamang ay inantabayan na ngayon yung pre-trial ng dating Pangulong Duterte. Ang sinasabi nga dito ay inaasahan magsisimula yung initial proceedings ng 9 p.m. dito Philippine time o alas 2 ng hapon sa The Hague. Inaasahan magsimula ang initial proceeding na may 30 minutes delay. According nga yan sa paliwanag ng abogado ng EJK victims na si Attorney Gilbert Ardes kanina sa One News. At mamaya nga may 30 minutes delay, so sa ngayon ay nag-aabang pa sila, magkahalo ang kanilang emosyon. Ng iba, sinasabi nila sa atin ay masaya sila nung naaresto si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Kumbaga, parang watch party, ano, Faith?
Yes,
Can you
yes.
ask? Yeah.
Oo, ito ay parang watch party. Kanina nga lamang ay nagsama-sama sila. Galing sila sa isang rally rin. Pero dahil nga sinuong nila yung traffic at mas maganda raw na magsama-sama sila at sabay-sabay nilang panoorin. At mamaya nga na aalamin natin yung kanilang reaksyon matapos nga yung gagawing pre-trial kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Alam mo, F, ang maganda dyan, pag lumitaw yung dating Pangulo dyan o kaya magsalita, tingnan mo yung mga reaction nila, how they react to the former president and what he has to say. Diba? Kasi you can imagine.
Yung initial reaction,
emotional,
eh, no? Oo.
Diba?
Sabi mo nga, medyo ninenervyos ang karamihan dyan sa watch party na yan, Faith.
Yes, totoo yan. No? Yung iba kasi ninenervyos, syempre, sabi nga nila, simula nung inaresto si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, ay inuulit nila yung kwento nung kanilang kaanak na namatay. So usually, sabi nga nung iba, nakausap natin, 2017 pa yung iba. So ito ay basa 8 years ago na. So hanggang sa mga oras na ito, sabi nila, naaalala pa nila. Pero ang hilinga nila ay sana maaresto si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte para makamit nila ang hustisya. Ses?
Okay, maraming salamat, Faith, at aantabayan natin ang reaksyon ng mga pamilya ng mga biktima ng war on drugs dyan sa watch party na yun. Kakaiba, no? I mean, I hate to call it a party, right? Because...
Watch event.
Watch event. Watch
Okay.
event.
Watch
It's
event.
more
Sige,
neutral.
sige.
Attorney, I was saying kanina, parang I do recall kasi nung, for example, in 2022, nung kainitan ng kampanya for the presidential elections, one of the more prevalent narratives was yung older people saying na nung panahon ni Marcos Sr., tahimik naman ang kanilang komunidad, nawala yung gulo, ganun-ganon, at hindi sila naapektuhan ng martial law, kaya okay lang yung martial law noon. Parang I can draw a parallel between that and in a way how some people feel about the drug war. Pag hindi ako tinamaan ng personal, we tend to overlook other things.
Well, alam mo, what I would suggest is dapat siguro kahit na ano pa yung kulay mo, political color mo, is you would suspend judgment at this point and let the process takes its natural course. No? Panoorin natin kung ano nangyari. Anyway, 6 years naman sa poder si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. The last 3 years, he was able to, sinasabi niya, justified lahat. No? Pero never naman nagkaroon ng poder yung mga victims. Never naman nagkaroon ng proper formal avenue to express their side. So let's suspend judgment kahit na pro-Duterte ka pa, let the victims also express their side in a neutral forum in the ICC. Anyway, President Duterte will be allowed to air out his defenses. So if they are saying that his defenses are airtight, if they're saying that there's justification behind these actions, then they shouldn't be afraid to ventilate their defenses in the proper neutral forum, diba? And that is the ICC. So let the process takes its natural course. Give it a chance. Give it a chance.
Let me ask you one more thing. Okay, medyo consistent din yung narrative that we've been hearing na yung mga puti, they're imposing their will on us, they're imposing their standards on us. Actually, nung the day that Duterte was being arrested sa Villamor, meron siyang soundbite doon eh. Of course, incidental lang.
In the plane.
Bago siya isakay, yung parang sumusunod-sunod lang tayo sa mga puti. Ganun eh. But when you look at the nature of the ICC, for example, the three judges, okay, one of them is Romanian, the other one is
Mexican,
the other one is from, I think, Benin.
Benin.
So, is there any truth to the idea, to the narrative na this is an imposition by the West?
Or we're surrendering our sovereignty to them?
The first prosecutor who initiated the complaint against Duterte was
Fatu
Fatu.
Bensouda.
Oh, yeah, exactly, from Africa, right? So mahirap yata yung argument na yun. Tsaka 120 plus countries ang members nito, hindi lang Western countries, no? That's second. And the third one is, I'm a little bit surprised nga na sinasabi nila, nako, Western to, or puti ito, or foreign ito.
Well,
Let's
the US
just
is not
say
even a
foreign.
member.
Oh, yeah. And yung mga, di ba, United States, not even a member. Foreign ito, sabi nila. Paano naging, all of a sudden, napaka-importante bigla, di ba, nung sovereignty. Sovereignty na, during the Duterte administration, hindi naman pinaglaban yung West Philippine Sea. In fact, yung permanent court or arbitration ruling, hindi rin naman pinaglaban.
They never recognized.
At tinawag na basura, mere scrap of paper. And again, I always say, to my students, to everyone, explain international law to, hindi naman yung international law foreign concept eh. Tayo nagsabi sa ating constitution that it is ours, it forms part of the law of the land. No? Nakalagay yan sa Article 2, Section 2 of the 1987 Constitution, which is the highest expression of the sovereign will of the people. So hindi nila pwedeng sabihin na tayo mismo na-deklara na international law is ours, forms part of the law of the land, and then sasabihin mo foreign, di ba? It's a little bit incompatible. It is part of the law of the land, it is ours.
Right, we now have an update from the ICC as indicated by the presiding judge. Mr. Duterte is present and attending the proceedings via video link. As Mr. Duterte made a long journey, the chamber authorized Mr. Duterte to follow the hearing at a distance. Okay, so he's not present in
He's not physically there in the courtroom.
Yes. His counsel, however, is present with us in the courtroom. All right, that's
So that's
the
allowed
latest
pala.
update.
That is allowed. Again, as I told you, sui generis, di ba? Every single thing that must be considered will be considered by the International Criminal Court. Lagi yan. So, kaya lagi ko sinasabi kanina, what could we expect? Ang hirap, but based on the rules, ito yung mga checklist na mga kailangan nilang ma-accomplish, but there are also various things that can happen that they must also take into consideration.
Okay, so kung video link, nakikita ba siya ng audience? Is there a big screen?
Yes, I would suppose so. Kasi even in previously, mga nag-a-attend has that screen. Meron yung screen dun sa right and sa left side. Kasi the way it's arranged, if I remember correctly, I don't know if it's still like that, diba? Maraming tables sa right, maraming tables sa left, which is yung sa prosecution, yung dun sa doon sa accused. And then, meron rin sa gitna which are the victims. Kasi hindi lang prosecution and accused ang nagpa-participate here. Let's remember that it's a triple party yung ano dito kasama
Lawyers
yung
of the victims.
of the victims and the witnesses can participate, can cross-examine too, ha? Hindi lang
Even
dalawang
the
party.
lawyers?
Yes. So again, it's sui generis, diba? It's a class of its own. Yung proceedings dyan sa International Criminal Court.
Well, doesn't explain why their link is not yet working. May aberya din. May aberya din doon. Akala ko ba sabi mo high-tech?
Kasi hindi
Padala
natin
ng load.
alam. Balayo mo, may mga things pa yun na kinoconsider. I think, for example, this matter na hindi dumating si Mr. Duterte, baka kumukuha pa sila ng special dispensation and baka nag-deliberate pa yung magistrates to start already. Or kung i-require ba siya pumasok, pero siguro pinagbigyan nila kasi pagod. Right? Again, yan yung mga kinoconsider. Kaya siguro it started also late. We are not sure because of that circumstance.
We still
but
no.
with the video link, do we assume that there's also an audio link that's on all the time? Or is it,
Yes, that's
or maaari siyang patayin ng judges? when they think
Pwede, definitely.
it's necessary?
Kasi nasa ano yan dun sa custodial center yan, sa custody center niya, no? So malamang the ones who are actually in control of the tech there are the custodial
I
members
asked
of the
kasi,
custody center.
but, of course, the former president will be asked certain things, like whether he understands the charges, whether he knows his rights and all that. So he would have to respond, or his lawyer would have to
Yeah,
respond.
may nag-ooperate
Oh,
nung...
but at the same time, we know that the former president also likes to talk. So if he starts talking, can he just go on talking?
He can just go on talking for so long that the discretion of the magistrates or the judges will hold during that time. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd like to go back to that later. Meantime, the UP College of Law hosted an academic seminar called a colloquium. It's titled Legal Developments in the Situation of the Republic of the Philippines. That's a very generic title. With us tonight is mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Merimon Reyes, who covered that event. Good evening, Merimon. Ano nangyari dyan? Tell us what happened.
Good evening, Sir Ed and Ms. Ses. Kanina lang nagkaroon ng colloquium nga itong UP College of Law in partnership or kasama ang Institute of International Legal Studies. And kanina naging very productive, lalo-lalo na para sa mga law students and yung lahat ng nakikinig pagdating doon sa paglilinaw on complicated legal issues or topics na pinagdadebatehan daw ngayon, lalo-lalo na pagdating sa public discourse tungkol sa International Criminal Court kasunod ng pagkakaaresto kaya former President Rodrigo Duterte sa sinasabing kanyang crimes against humanity kaugnay sa kanyang kinalaman sa EJK at laban kontra droga noong siya'y namumuno. Ito ay para sa ikalalawak ng kaalaman ng mas nakararami nang wala raw partisan posturing na magagawa. And isa sa pinaka napag-usapan din kanina ay yung pagkakaaresto kay Pangulong Duterte nitong Martes na sinasabi ni Assistant Professor Duterte ay by the book naman daw. If I may quote him, ang nasabi niya kanina, I don't think there were any irregularities in that sense. I noticed many reports saying that he was read his Miranda rights, which technically doesn't apply in the sense that he is not charged with any criminal offense in the Philippines. And so, but even that particular step was a step that was taken with great prudence to make sure that he understood that there were certain rights that protected him even though he is not accused in any relation to a crime or felony under Philippine law. Ayon din kanina, narinig din at nakausap natin itong retired ICC judge na si Emeritus Rola Pangalanan. Maayos, modern at kumpleto ang pasilidad para doon sa iba pang magiging concern ng panig ni Duterte. Kaya kahit pa ang medical emergencies ay madali daw itong maaagapan and even yung problema raw or possible concern pagdating sa kakainin ay rest assured ma-address dahil religiously and culturally sensitive yung diet daw na hinahain doon. And dagdag pa niya inaasahan daw nila yung paghingi ng kampo ni Duterte ng interim release. Pero if ever daw na magagrant ito sa kanila, ay rest assured naman na magiging limitado pa rin yung paggalaw ni Duterte to guarantee or para magkaroon ng assurance na hindi magkakaroon ng pagtakas sa pagharap sa pagdinig. And same goes din para sa safety and security ng mga ebidensya, ng witnesses, or para maiwasan din yung possible repetition or continuation of the crimes which the accused is charged. Nalinaw rin kanina na wala raw kaso sa bansa laban sa dating Pangulo, kaya hindi raw maaaring tignan o gamiting panglaban dito yung sinasabing principle of complementarity sa sitwasyon na kinakaharap. Maaari rin ngayong gamitin, lalo-lalo na pag nagsimula na talaga yung pre-trial, pero ngayon kasi initial appearance pa lang ni Duterte yung inaabangan natin. Pero pag nagtuloy na ito, magagamit din daw na ebidensya yung mga open source information tulad ng even yung records ng pronouncement ni Duterte on EJK at laban sa droga. Or pwede rin daw gamitin yung speeches ng resource persons doon sa mga isinagawang hearing ng House noong mga lumipas na linggo o buwan. At ayon din sa kampo ni Duterte, kung naalala natin yung mga binabantayan natin, dapat daw may extradition na nasunod o hindi ito nangyari bago ilipad to The Hague, Netherlands itong si Duterte. Pero nilinaw ng panel kanina, and if I may quote si Attorney Rubil Rosel Tugade, under Rome Statute, it's surrender or extradition. And extradition would imply another state is involved. And in the case of former President Duterte, it was a surrender. So by the textual definition of the Rome Statute, it's not an extradition. Overall, isa sa mga nakita nila na sana raw ay mangyari sa mga susunod na araw, linggo, buwan o taon, ay yung mabusising pagtingin, lalong-lalo na doon sa kung paano ginawa yung pattern of criminality sa sinasabing crimes against humanity ni Duterte. And isa pa sa pinaka-antabayanan din natin, kumpara sa, which is different or in contrast sa korte dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, kung saan meron tayong prosecutors and defense sides, pagdating sa korte, doon sa ICC, mayroong third legal representation. At ito ay manggagaling doon sa panig naman ng mga biktima sa pamamagitan ng Victims Council. So doon sila magkakaroon ng pagkakataon. Subject din ito kung gusto nilang magkaroon ng anonymity. Subject ito to evaluation sa kanila. Doon nila makukuha yung pagkakataon na mag-share din ng kanilang testimonies. Pwede nilang i-cross-check yung witnesses and testimonies ng dalawang panig. And hopefully doon na nga makuha kung ano man yung magiging justified decision para kay Duterte.
Okay, maraming
Para
salamat.
ng abogado itong si Mary mo na.
Diretso, ang galing. Oh. Alam mo, mag-isa lang yan, ha?
Oo.
That's our mojo from UP. Merimon Reyes, I'm sorry, taga-USC pala siya. She's in UP na kasama sa USC. Maraming salamat, Merimon Reyes, reporting live from University of the Philippines. Thank you, Merimon. Okay, we're still waiting for live feed from The Hague.
Pareho ang sinabi ng mga panelists
Oo nga
doon
eh.
sa sinabi nyo, attorney.
Siyempre, medyo nakinig rin naman ako doon sa mga seminar nila kanina. So, kasi I was working and then I was supposed to attend personally, pero dahil nga ang dami rin mga interview, tsaka ang daming work, siyempre nagtatrabaho naman tayo.
But to one of the points being raised na because there is no pending case against Duterte, therefore the issue of complementarity does not apply. How does that work? I mean, what if they are? What if the defense argues that well, then you should have filed a case to test the question of complementarity?
Oh, well, ang nakalagay sa Rome Statute, willing and able, di ba? If willing, they should have filed. Di ba pwede sabihin na then you should have filed? Wala kang na-file eh. Bakit? Willing and unable, willingness and inability, di ba? It's either kahit na willing sila pero unable, right? But ultimately, yung willingness and inability are best exemplified to me by the action of the Chief Executive of surrendering. Why? Remember, the Chief Executive is the Chief Architect of Foreign Policy. And as the Chief Executive, he has awesome powers to protect public welfare and promote national security. No, this is in the case of Marcos versus Manglapus. No, in the Marcos versus Manglapus, pababalikin dapat yung mga Marcoses in the Philippines o yung mga Marcoses pinagbawalan. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court doon, the President has vast prerogatives, and in this particular instance, very di ba? Pag naiwan si President Duterte here, medyo nakakatakot din. Baka kasi magkagulo, di ba? Kung paano mo huhugutin yan. So yung pag-exercise niya ng prerogatives na yon, I think is consistent with his exercise with his powers as Chief Executive, number one. And number two, that's a clear waiver of willingness and ability, di ba? Of jurisdiction. Ang nakalagay kasi sa ating batas is we retain primary jurisdiction. Primary jurisdiction, di ba? Pero nung tinurn over mo, it's an act of waiving that primary jurisdiction by the President, who's the Chief Architect of Foreign Policy.
Pero ang sinasabi naman, may ulterior motive siya. May political expediency din that led to that decision. He may not have made that decision if it were
Not an election year.
and the breakup, the breakup
there was
of the
no unity.
of the alliance.
Even us in the international human rights organization, movement, and even in aficionados of international law, hindi naman kami naive na sinasabing devoid of any politics yung prosecution of international crimes. In fact, ang laging tinitingnan rin ng limited kasi resources ng human rights movement. Ang tinitingnan rin nila is nag-open ba yung what we call political window of opportunity to start prosecution para ma-devote namin yung resources namin doon. So hindi yan naive yung mga human rights movement na sasabihin wala dapat politics dito. Even international law, that's part of it, right? But is it the primary consideration of President Marcos? Maybe. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is he has to be held accountable under international law. That is a question, di ba? Kung ano yung problema lang kay President Marcos, that can be discussed through elections or any other mechanisms, but still the accountability question of President Duterte is still there for international law.
Question, so if a case were filed against him here locally, what would have
change
happened? I
things?
mean, bakit walang nangahas?
Takot. Kahit naman, alam mo, marami na kaming mga, even in the human rights movement na willing ka po ba mag-file? Kahit na umiiyak na yung mga kliyente na parang ibalik niyo po yung anak ko. Walang
So
nangyayari.
mabuti na rin, ano?
Well, kasi
Kasi hindi nga tutuloy sa ICC ang proceedings? Kumbaga, kung meron dito, pwedeng...
Well, sana nga, alam mo yun, kung local nga sana, natatakot ka, di ba? Isa kang lowly trial judge. Lowly ka trial judge, wala kang bodyguard. Tatawagan ka pa. Tapos tandaan mo ang accusations dito, mass murder. Na alam naman natin may bumubulagta halos araw-araw. The numbers are so real. Initially, merong count kayo mga taga-media.
Yes.
Meron kayong count
Pero nawala na.
Nawala kasi we just lost count.
It was just too much.
We just lost count,
You're
di ba?
right, you're
Even human rights groups, even the International Criminal Court's estimate is 12,000 to 30,000. Some human rights groups, 6,000. Even the Commission on Human Rights, 30,000. Grabe yung number ng disparity nun dahil we just really lost track because of the sheer volume of people who were killed. Tapos ikaw, lowly trial judge, nag-iisa ka, ifa-file sa'yo, tapos alam mong mamamatay tao yun sa kabila, tatakot ka rin no? So, yung willingness and ability is a little bit
Magre-recuse ka na lang.
Magre-recuse, didribble mo na lang para hindi rin ikaw yung, kaya tumatagal din, di ba?
Pero, may potential din naman on the other side of the coin, you know? Consideration.
Yeah, everything. Pero, alam mo, ayaw mo rin naman, siguro yung consideration pagka, di ba, monetary yung transaction. Pero buhay itong pinag-uusapan natin dito. It's gonna be in your conscience.
Kaya ang tinatawag dito ay court of last resort.
Let me play the devil's advocate. What if I was on the Duterte side, and what if I argue na, but how does that prove that the justice system does not work just because you do not want to file a case? What if you could have filed the case but you just refused to, and then you're laying the blame on us?
I'm gonna challenge yung notion na just because he is in the ICC, automatically it shows that our justice system is not working. It's not true, no? Yung sa complementarity
it's not automatic.
Oo, sa complementarity, my stand is there was a waiver. There was a waiver to begin with from the president, at least legally. Pero sige, let's go on to reality and
Sorry,
factual.
can you go to that again? Anong waive? What do you mean
Willingness, di ba? Willing and able.
Okay,
Hindi tabi willing, kaya nga namin winave yung jurisdiction, kaya namin turn over sa inyo. That's first, right? Legally lang yon. Pero sige, let's be honest with how our justice system works, di ba? Let's be honest. Sinabi ko na yung circumstances of a lowly trial judge endangering his or her life. But more importantly, to begin with, hindi naman dapat nangyari yung 12,000 to 30,000 deaths if our institutions are so strong. Di ba? We could have stopped that.
Yeah.
We could have stopped
At
that.
one point, I don't know, the Commission on Human Rights could have held investigations.
And then, dapat nag-launch na kaagad yung Department of Justice dun sa mga police officers and carrying out everything.
Napolcom.
Bakit wala? Dadalawa lang yung conviction, or tatlo na nga ba? 3 piraso lang yung convictions related to the drug war, di ba? So, kitang-kita rin yung inability, not just unwillingness.
Ng government institutions.
So, alam mo yun, sa akin kasi dapat as a nation, hindi dapat tayo balat sibuyas, di ba? We should be capable of self-introspection. And that is really the status of the institutions.
I can hear somebody talking
Yeah
there.
nga eh.
Yes.
Oh, there.
There's
Let's
a
now
video.
bring in this live na hindi pala live, but
Delayed proceedings.
delayed proceedings of the ICC. Let's listen in.
Sir, is this going to be in English?
English and French.
Oh my.
Are we getting any audio?
Well, tahimik pa eh. Okay, of course you can see in front the 3 judges. There you go. I think that's the Romanian, the presiding judge.
Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone inside and outside of the courtroom. Now, before we start with today's initial appearance, I would like to remind you that the Chamber has authorized video recordings and the taking of photographs. Please go ahead.
Je vous remercie. Vous avez une...
Thank you. You have 1 minute to take photographs and record videos.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Court officer, please, could you please call the case? Thank you, Madam President. Your Honours. The situation in the Republic of the Philippines case, the prosecutor versus Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte, case number ICC 0121 0125. And we are in open session.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the parties to introduce themselves, starting with the Office of the Prosecutor. Please pause before speaking and speak slowly to allow the interpreters to interpret appropriately. May I ask you to introduce yourself and to confirm whether the list of your staff that I received prior to the hearing is correct, Mr. Prosecutor?
President, Your Honours, good morning. The list is correct. Once again, Deputy Prosecutor Manjay Niang to my left, Trial Lawyer Edward Jeremy behind us, Trial Lawyer Robin Croft, International Cooperation Advisor Chantel Daniels, and our very able case manager Grace Go. I'm Karim Khan, the prosecutor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I now turn to the counsel for the defence of Mr. Duterte. As everyone can see, Mr. Duterte is present and is attending the hearing via video link. As Mr. Duterte made a long journey involving a considerable time difference, the chamber authorised Mr. Duterte to follow the hearing at a distance. His counsel, however, is present with us in the courtroom. Thank you, counsel. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Your Honours. I am Salvador C. Medjaldea, counsel for Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, counsel. I will now introduce the chamber. By my side, we have the Judge Reine Adelaide Sophie Alapine Gansu, the Vice President of the Court, and Judge Maria del Socorres Flores Liera. I am the presiding judge of the pretrial chamber 1 of the court, and my name is Julia Antonella Motok. Now, I would like to speak to you, Mr. Duterte. I'm speaking French, but you are receiving interpretation of what I'm saying in English. I understand that you are at ease in the English language and that the interview yesterday at the detention centre was conducted in English and that you did not deem it necessary to request interpretation into any other language during this interview. This said, I would like firstly to confirm your identity. Could you provide us with your full names, please?
I am Rodrigo Roa Duterte. That's my first middle name is Roa. The surname is Duterte.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. What is your date of birth?
Again, ma'am.
Can we request that the question be repeated? I don't think he heard it. Thank you.
Repetition from the English booth. What is your date of birth? Yes, thank you very much, counsel. I was asking quite simply of Mr. Duterte what his full names were, and then I subsequently asked him what his date of birth was and what his place of birth is. Is that all right, counsel?
Yep. Of course, I do. My birth month day is March 28, 1945. I was born in the province of Leyte in the Philippines.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. As a preliminary point. Very well. Thank you, Mr. Duterte. As a preliminary point, it is useful to clarify the nature and limited scope of this first appearance hearing. today's hearing is neither the start of the trial, nor is it a confirmation of charges hearing. During today's hearing, no evidence will be collected or presented, and the issues of Mr. Duterte's guilt or innocence will therefore not be addressed. In accordance with Article 61 of the Rome Statute, the Court's founding treaty, and Rule 1211 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the main purpose of this initial appearance is to answer 3 questions. Firstly, the Chamber must ensure that the person who was the subject of the arrest warrant has been informed of the crimes of which he is accused. Second, the Chamber must ensure that this person has been informed of his rights as recognised by the Rome Statute. Third, the Chamber must set a date on which it intends to hold a confirmation of charges hearing. The Chamber notes that your counsel, Mr. Duterte, filed 2 motions, one in relation with today's hearing, and you may be aware that these 2 motions have not been accepted by the Chamber because of the nature of today's hearing. No further discussion on the matter is necessary during this hearing because, as I said at an earlier stage, the aim of this hearing today is to introduce the parties and to ascertain the charges and to set a date for the confirmation of charges hearing at a later stage. With regard to the first point, I recall that Mr. Duterte has received a copy of the warrant for his arrest and that a redacted version of the prosecutor's application for the issuance of the warrant of arrest is public. I will now ask the court officer to read the charges against him. The charges will be read in English. Please, over to you, Madam Courtroom Officer. Thank you, Madam President. Your honours.
On 7 March 2025, Pre-Trial Chamber 1 concluded that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte is criminally responsible pursuant to Article 25(3)(a) of the Rome Statute as an alleged indirect co-perpetrator for the crime against humanity of murder pursuant to Article 7(1)(a) of the statute as follows. A. Murder of at least 19 persons, allegedly drug pushers or thieves, killed by members of the Davao Death Squad in various locations in or around Davao City, Philippines between 2011 and 2016. B. Murder of at least 24 persons, allegedly criminals, such as drug pushers or thieves or drug users, killed by or under the supervision of members of the Philippines law enforcement, sometimes with the assistance of persons who were not part of the police, at various locations in the Philippines between 2016 and 2019.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la...
Thank you, Madam Courtroom Officer. Mr. Duterte, I'm not going to ask you to stand up because I know your condition, so I'm going to allow you to remain seated. You have just heard the reading of the charges, which are in accordance with the content of the arrest warrant you received. This means that you have been informed of the crimes of which you are accused. And this concludes the examination of the first point mentioned above. I will now turn to the second point, which concerns your rights as a suspect before this court. I will summarize some of these rights, which are of particular importance at this stage of the proceedings. Those rights are as follows. You can benefit from the assistance free of charge of a competent interpreter and benefit from the necessary translations to meet the requirements of fairness. You have the right to have the time and facilities necessary to prepare your defence and to communicate freely and confidentially with the counsel of your choice. You have the right to remain silent, and you cannot be forced to testify against yourself or to confess guilt. You can also make statements in your defence without taking an oath. In addition to any other disclosure provided for in the statute, the prosecutor must disclose to you, as soon as practicable, evidence in his possession or at his disposal that shows or tends to show your innocence or to mitigate your guilt, or that could undermine the credibility of the evidence against you. At the confirmation of charges hearing, you can contest the charges, challenge the evidence presented by the prosecutor, and present evidence. There will be no trial if the charges are not confirmed or if the proceedings against you are completed. You have the possibility to make an application for interim release pending trial. And finally, Mr. Duterte, you have the right to be informed as soon as possible and in detail of the nature, cause, and content of the charges in the language that you fully understand and speak. Counsel, have you understood?
Yes, we're listening, ma'am. We're listening. And before it ends, may we be allowed to present a manifestation on the circumstances behind the delivery of Mr. Duterte in this chamber.
Oui, Maître, je dois d'abord demander...
Yes, counsel. This is as part of the procedure. And as we've said since the very outset, I need to ask Mr. Duterte himself to make observations as to the condition of his surrender to the court and the conditions of his detention at the detention facility of the court since his arrival. If he can please tell us these details.
Thank you. Can I...
Oui, Maître. Oui.
The presiding judge. Yes, counsel.
Please. 2 days ago, the whole world has witnessed the degrading fashion in which a former president of a sovereign country was bundled into a private aircraft and summarily transported to The Hague. To us lawyers, this would be called an extrajudicial rendition. To the less legally inclined, it was a pure and simple kidnapping. My client was denied all access to the legal recourse in the country of his citizenship, and this all in the nature of political score settling. Two troubled entities struck an unlikely alliance, an incumbent president who wished to neutralize and choke the legacy of my client and his daughter on the other hand, and a troubled legal institution subject to delegitimization and desperate for a price cuts and a legal show today on the other hand. With this in mind, it is not surprising that my client was abducted from his country. ICC private jets do not drop out of the thin air. That jet which received my client was coordinated in advance. The UAE is not a state party to the ICC and has no obligation to cooperate with the court, Yet my client sat in transit in that country for more than 5 hours. I invite the registry's representative to present today in court to explain to the judges exactly how they believe this transfer was anything other than a gross abuse of process. Given the precipitous arrival of my client, an elderly man with debilitating medical issues, hard of hearing and poor of sight, he was taken to a hospital for observation. Only this morning have I met him for the first time with less than an hour to discuss legal issues. I have not been able to present him with a hard copy of the arrest warrant because we were not supplied with such. I have not even been able to explain to him what the prosecution requested when seeking the issuance of the arrest warrant. This is because the chamber only established a redacted version of the prosecution request last night. Other than to identify himself, my client is not able to contribute anything to this hearing. Most importantly, he is not able even to tell you that he has been informed of the charges as contained in the arrest warrant for a reason more pertinent to which I alluded in my written request to this honorable pretrial chamber this morning, and which is confidential in nature. Accordingly, I repeat my respectful request, which was rejected this morning, to postpone the substantive aspect of this hearing to the next week, when I will have the opportunity to sit with my client and to explain to him what a confirmation hearing is and what the disclosure is, and how the prosecution alleges that he committed crimes. I thank the court for its attention and regret to say that I do not have instructions to continue my submission any further today. Thank you.
D'abord, concernant...
Thank you, Counsel. Now, with regard to the health issues of Mr. Duterte, I believe that the court has taken specific measures with regard to his health situation, and I note that subsequent to his arrest and when he arrived at the detention center, the court's doctor was of the opinion that you were fully mentally aware and fit, and that you have undergone further checks and tests at the detention facility. And when you broached health matters, that's saying that you were not able to come to the hearing, the doctors who consulted with you were of the opinion that Mr. Duterte was not in a position to come to the hearing physically, but that if he gave a written permission, he would be able to take part via video link. Now, that is with regard to the health matters that you just mentioned. They are very important, especially concerning the matter of age. Now, with regard to the rights of Mr. Duterte, we have before us the registrar's or the registry's report that says that Mr. Duterte has been informed of his rights, including Articles 66 and 67 of the Rome Statute, and that that he is aware of his rights and that he is also aware of the charges against him. We have before us the report of the registry saying that he was also aware of the warrant of arrest in the English language and that he is very well versed in the English language. Once again, you have the possibility of these charges being read in English, which was the case today. I have read to you in the French language the rights that he has, Mr. Duterte, before this court, and I'd like to specify once again that this is an initial hearing in order for Mr. Duterte to be aware of his rights and the charges against him. And then there will be a full procedure that will unfurl leading up to the confirmation of charges that will enable Mr. Duterte to raise all the matters that you have just raised with regard to the warrant of arrest, with regard to the crimes committed, with regards to the charges and any other matters associated with his arrest and the matters of jurisdiction of the court. You have the opportunity to do this throughout these proceedings leading up to the actual confirmation of charges hearing. Now, Counsel, with regard to your request for another hearing to be held next week, well, your initial request, that was, this was not accepted by the court. Now, you have seen the two decisions of the court that have been disclosed to you, and you are aware of the fact that these two decisions were refused. And this is by dint of the fact that this first initial appearance hearing does not need much preparation, as I have said to you on a number of occasions. I am now going to move on to the third stage, which is to set the date for the confirmation of charges hearing. After assessing all factors, including the need for the parties and participants to adequately prepare, as well as Mr. Duterte's rights, including his right to be tried within a reasonable time, the date for the commencement of the confirmation of charges hearing is September the 23rd, 2025. I would add that in accordance with Rule 1217 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, this date may be postponed by the Chamber depending on the progress of the proceedings, either on its own motion or at the request of the prosecutor or the defence. Before concluding this hearing, I would like to inform the parties of the next procedural steps. First, I would like to recall that in accordance with Rule 1212B of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the Chamber holds status conferences to ensure a small exchange of information under satisfactory conditions. These conferences are organised either ex officio or at the request of the prosecutor or the defence. Secondly, a set of decisions will be taken in a timely manner to ensure that the proceedings progress smoothly and expeditiously. More specifically, I am referring in particular to a decision on the arrangements and procedure for the disclosure of evidence, and a decision setting a timetable for the disclosure of evidence in such a way as to ensure orderly and efficient disclosure between the parties. In this regard, the Chamber orders the prosecutor to begin disclosing today the information on the basis of which the warrant of arrest was issued, and to complete this disclosure no later than within the next 7 days. The Chamber will also issue a decision on the participation of the victims who, according to the statute of the court and to the extent permitted by the Chamber, are authorised to present their views and concerns at this stage of the proceedings. We have come to the end of Mr. Duterte's first appearance hearing. I would like to thank all the participants in this hearing, the interpreters and the stenographers. This concludes today's hearing.
The hearing is adjourned.
Hearing is adjourned.
And
That was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it appears that everything was, all the petitions or the motions made by the defense were effectively denied.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's the them asking for a hearing next week. I think that was denied. That was postponement. I think it's also something related on his health and age. Maybe that's provisional liberty or maybe suspension of today's proceedings, which was also denied because the court said their doctors actually
cleared him.
checked on him and in fact gave him consideration to not attend
appear.
physically, but he can attend via video conference. With the circumstances on when they were questioning his arrest, the court cited the registrar's report saying that he was read his rights, he understood it, he was comfortable with the English language, and took credence, took that report into consideration.
Yung tanong naman, sir, is whether or not you understand eh. Hindi naman yung wala pa sa merits.
Wala pa sa merits.
Wala pa sa
And sabi ng
merits,
court, hindi pa yan time ngayon. Kasi ngayon is tatlong bagay lang. We will read your rights, we will read the accusations against you, and finally we will schedule the pre-trial
Did I
hearings.
hear it right? The pre-trial conference will be on the 23rd of September, 2025?
Parang yun yung understanding natin.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me, but yes,
That was what I
the schedule will be sometime in September.
But that's 6 months away. Is that how it really works?
Well, again, sui generis, the court will take a look at maybe the accusations and therefore give them ample time, which is 6 months. So the Duterte camp can say that they don't know what the charges are. The prosecutor was directed to give the charges, the basis of the charges for within the next 7 days, and then from then until September 23, they can prepare their defense, right?
But well, in fairness, Medjaldea was given the chance to say his piece. Although parang ang sinabi ng korte, hindi ito ang proper forum para i-gate ng mga ito.
This is initial appearance with the 3 objectives only, and we're gonna do it. You can have all your questions in the proper forum.
Pero yung pahapyaw, I mean, to paraphrase Medjaldea, 2 troubled entities struck a deal, the incumbent president, of course, BBM, and a troubled legal institution in need of a legal show today.
It's about political score settling.
Yeah. Well, the second entity I suppose they were referring to was the ICC, if I'm getting that right. A troubled legal institution in need of a legal show.
Yeah. Well, they will try to make this theatrical, no? If I were their counsel, I would advise against it, right? Because instead of doing this in a theatrical manner, as if they will be influenced by your political show. Again, this is the International Criminal Court. It's not, a political.
It's immaterial to them. Parang hindi yan.
Yeah, at least that's how they are trained. No?
It's not talk to the people.
Yeah, because what they're doing is they're talking to the people and they're not talking to the judges.
Right.
In trial, in real actual trial, you talk to the judge. You don't talk to the public. This is not a political theatrical show.
On the other hand, what if they're not the audience that they're targeting? What if the audience they're targeting is the ones here?
Well, that they have to do that strategically, right? If they can do something about it. But nonetheless, Duterte is already there and they're asking for reliefs there, not here.
He is at the mercy of the 3 judges.
Or at their hands of justice.
At the hands of justice. Better put. All right. Well, this has been a One News and News 5 special coverage of former President Duterte's first appearance before the ICC. I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Ed Lingao. Well, before we go, we say thank you to Attorney Dean De Leon for joining us this afternoon, this evening.
Thank you for your insight.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, very, very enlightening. But thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Okay, stay tuned for Frontline tonight. Good evening.